Nations. If you have the opportunity to form a government, how will your administration deal with the seemingly increasing state of entropy across the world, and how will you make Canada a frontline advocate for the causes you think should be prioritized in the international arena? CB, you have the floor.
Thanks. This is really one of the pivotal questions during this election. Tomorrow, July 3rd, you'll have the opportunity to cast your ballot for which party will be sending a delegation to NORAD meetings, which which party will be sending delegations to Brussels for NATO, to the United Nations, which party, which government will be representing Canada on the world stage. And the fact of the matter is that the Conservative Party has a record of doing these things. We've strengthened the special relationship between the United States and Canada. We got the President of the United States to speak before Parliament under a Conservative government. We've set up one of the first formal embassies between the United Kingdom and the United States, and the United States and Canada. And we've also been a major part in the framework to restart the model United Nations, as well as defending Canadian sovereignty and taking a harsh stand against Russian intervention in these regions. And similarly, we're going to work on combining our initiative on foreign policy with our initiative in economic policy. For example, this means opening markets for Canadian business. That means having the 60% of our GDP, which accounts for trade in our economy, expanding to even larger amounts. For example, working with getting free trade deals with nations like, say, South Korea and the European Union with its $18 trillion economy. That means expanding relationships to Asia, and that means also committing to free trade negotiations between, for example, Canada, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom and Australia. Free trade, free enterprise, free movement, and that means standing up for Canada around the world, across the world, and in different corners of the globe. And if you elect a Conservative Party to 24 Sussex, and if you send a Conservative Canadian delegation across to different institutions around the world that Canada's part in, you will be standing up for Canada, and you will not be hesitating, not for one moment, to solidify the bonds which make Canada a global and active member, while also defending Canada's viewpoints on the international stage. A vote for the Conservative Party of Canada is a vote to stand up for Canada and NORAD, in NATO, in the United Nations, and around the world.
Thank you very much, Fred. Who has the floor?
So I know that the Libertarian Reform Party was not the same Libertarian Party that was in a coalition with the Conservatives, but most of our members were indeed in that government. We were in that coalition, and I myself served as ambassador to the UK. As Stevie mentioned, we had an embassy with the UK and Ireland, and I also served as foreign minister for that government, or Minister of Foreign Affairs. And I think he made a lot of good points that the Conservatives and the Libertarian Party, we had a lot of strong foreign policy achievements. Like he mentioned that we had President Big Boss visit Canada, and he gave an address to our parliament. And I think that was a big achievement because he's a socialist. And I know we obviously don't get along on a lot of ideological ideas, but we were able to put that aside, and we were able to work very well with the United States despite our differences. So the U.S. is obviously such a huge an ally for us. They're our largest trading partner. We share the world's longest border with the U.S. So obviously the fact that we were able to have such a strong relationship with them, I think should show that our foreign policy, our ideas are what is best for Canada. If we are close with the U.S., that's good for Canada. And Canada is an exporting nation, and we need to be able to sell our goods to foreign markets. I think a huge part of the libertarian policy will be to sign free trade deals with these other countries around the world. That's one of our biggest policy points for foreign policy. I would also like to mention that the Libertarians were not an interventionist party. We don't believe in that. I think if you look at history, if you look at what's happened, especially in the Middle East, you'll see that interventionism, it does not work. And we are going to try, we have learned from that, and we are going to definitely shy away from doing stuff like that.
Thank you for your answer. Teddy has the floor.
Thank you. So, key to our policy is Canada, and what Canada is, and how Canada is seen in the world. First of all, we want to become a leader on peace, and this is core to our values and core to our views. We want to get a seat on the United Nations Security Council so that we can be there when the big issues are being discussed. Importantly, we still need to fix our damaged reputation from the government a few years ago led by Stephen Harper. Now, if you listen to my honorable conservative friend, Stevie, we have perhaps issues. In particular, if you go back and listen again to the order in which he presented the conservative priorities, NORAD, NATO, and the United Nations. NORAD and NATO are defensive organizations. It is the United Nations which works for peace. Peace seems to be last on that list. Now, the Democratic Party of Canada views peace as first and foremost. We are going to ensure that we work as a peaceful force for the world. We need to bring peace to everywhere. Let's be honest, there's really nowhere that we don't want to see peace. Canada is viewed, perhaps stereotypically, as a place where everyone says sorry. And this is the kind of Canada that, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty proud of. I'm proud to live in a place that we are seen as humble and respectful and just plain nice. And because of that, because of the stereotype, earned or otherwise, we have a unique position and a unique role that we can play in being that force for peace. And I believe that this is something that we can do as a government, either on our own or in coalition, even with the Conservatives, even with the Libertarians, with the Liberals, with the Radicals, with any party, is that we can bring what is best within Canada, and which is our peaceful nature, and bring that to the world stage and be a key force in peace and a key force in a better world.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, I have a question for
Wait,
Kenny.
wait. We still have Carol and Zhang. Carol has the floor.
Opening statements, Red Wolf. So, as everyone here has said, I mean, we all believe and we all agree that peace and democracy and human rights are all things that we should all strive and fight for. And just like everyone else here, we believe that the Liberal Party will support peace and human rights throughout the world. But we have a history of supporting this. And, you know, Stevie mentioned that they will fight to enact free movement and free trade between certain Commonwealth nations. I'd like to remind people that the Liberal Party was key to the planning and the passing of the original free movement policy that passed Canada legislatures, although failed in other, I believe failed in the UK. And so now, you know, we will fight for the new CANZUC agreement. We will help and we will try to get that passed throughout all the nations and not just in Canada. But we also want to establish peace in the Middle East. We want to establish peace in Israel and Palestine, peace in the Ukraine as well. The Russian aggression there is unheard of, but we also want to ensure stability in Venezuela. The Venezuelan people are calling for international help in their plight against a tyrannical government, and so we will work with the Organization of American States to help these people. Right, we are a nation that has the ability to help people across the world, and we will do so. Under a liberal government, we will help in any capacity that we have, and that any capacity that the people want us to help them with, we will help them as long as it is reasonable to do so. Canada is a world leader in peacekeeping and in diplomacy, and we plan on continuing that. We will help anyone who wants to help.
So the radicals believes Canada's position on the world stage is to promote and facilitate peace and cooperation in all areas, and we should only use direct force when absolutely necessary and justified. And we will continue the policy on UN authorized peacekeeping and continue to provide humanitarian support and funding to local organizations and international organizations, non-governmental organizations to prevent wars and to promote peace and democracy. And we will also continue our policy and increase the funding for humanitarian support in case of crisis like flooding or earthquake. And we will also continue to protect refugees who need protection. While many parties has supported a bid for the United Nations Security Council, the radicals don't oppose that, but we don't believe that we should get it at all cost, and the campaign for a United Nations Security Council seat has been very costly for many nations, and we don't believe we should compromise our principles in those campaigns. And yeah, that's our policy on Canada's position in the world. And yes, we will continue to participate in organizations like UN and Commonwealth and Francophonie, and we will not withdraw from NATO. But we will ensure a proper parliamentary debate before our soldiers are sent to war, whether it's authorized by NATO or United Nations.
Thank you for your question. And now we're moving on to open debate. Steve, Red Wolf has the floor first, followed by Stevie, then possibly Carol. 10 minutes on the clock.
So, Kenny, during your speech, you said that you would, the NDP is going to pursue a seat on the Security Council, on the UN Security Council. I wanted to ask you, like, I myself am completely open to having a seat on the UN Security Council. I want to ask you what you're looking to give up for that seat. Like, I know a lot of people, the UN wants to step up peacekeeping missions if you want a seat on the Security Council. So are you willing to put Canadian lives at risk to get a seat on the Security Council? Or is this just like, we'd like one, but we're not gonna fight too hard for it?
Well, I think it's a bit perhaps nihilistic to think that, we have to give up something in order to have a seat on the council. I believe that the United Nations is a consensus-based organization where we don't necessarily have to trade and make backroom deals for seats on the council. So I reject the premise of that.
Well, as I said, you don't have to, but I was asking, like, obviously, I think that would make it easier. So would you? Is that something you would be willing to do?
Well, obviously, peace is our prime focus. It's not something that we're going to rule out, where we're going to say, no, we're not sending peacekeepers anywhere. But at the same time, it's not necessarily something that we're focusing on and pushing for. I mean, obviously, it's better to have, Canadian men and women in uniform fulfilling the peacekeeper role than fulfilling the aggressor role.
Well, I just want to point out that also the NDP is rejecting.
Right. So Teddy, I gotta address the points you've made, man. Look, first of all,